Welcome, welcome to another installment of Soulful Renewal. And we are here in this session with Maribeth Decker, whose focus is animal communication and positive changes. Maribeth, I love the work you're doing with your organization. And, we had a little opportunity to talk earlier, and the journey you've had yourself has been nothing short of phenomenal. And I'd really love for you to share your journey because you've dedicated your work to helping people connect with their animals on a deeper level. And a lot of people don't think about how deep that relationship can be, especially during difficult transitions. What led you to this path of animal communication and healing?
That's a beautiful question, and thank you for asking. It's a great way to start. Um, Jerry, I had completed two careers, so I'm not a animal communicator who came out of the womb talking to animals, and I don't mind saying that. That's the truth. But as I was finishing up my second career, I got the urge to do energy healing. And when I became a Reiki master and did some other energy healing, this is for people. My dogs who had passed came and stayed with me and showed up. And I was dumbfounded. I was like, the funny story is I talked to my friend Mary and she says, "Well, that's animal communication." And my response was like, that's a thing. But when my dog Timmy, which I was the luckiest girl in the world, he came back as a full body apparition sitting in the dining room, little grin, one ear up, one ear down, and because that's my Timmy. And he just smiled at me and he looked happy and he looked just like he's full of joy. And what I learned from that was our animals survive death. That's my point of view. That's my experience. They find place to be happy. And this guy took the time to come back and tell me all was well. I'm
Mm,
like, holy cow. Thank you so much, Timmy.
yeah.
Um, and my dog Eddie, she's a girl. The kids named her, but she came with me, and I didn't see her, but I felt her presence as I was traveling to a meeting for the association I worked with, and it was just after she died. So I was a mess, and I thought, how am I going to be out there being staffing it and smiling and all that stuff? She was with me on the plane. I could feel her.
Mhm.
Somehow I ended up in an aisle seat, which I always loved the seat near the window. But it was so strong that I was petting her. And I would keep thinking people must have looked at me, thought, what the heck is this woman doing? But she was sitting next to me, and then she stayed with me in the hotel room that first night so that I could feel her loving presence actually healing me. So I was able to get up and do what I had to do the next day. And that sent me in a different direction. I love the healing aspect, and I wanted to do animal communication on purpose and see where it led me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And so you found it to be healing for you first, and it was a extension of what you had done with humans.
It was. I was doing it for humans, but I was getting it from them. Both of those experiences were so, how do you say it? Relief is not the strongest word, just so joyful
Hmm.
that they cared enough to do this for me. It just brought me to a new world. And then I said, well, I'm going to start working with animals and their people because it's a relationship. It's not just, um, oh, your dog said this or that, but it's like what's going on between them, conversations. Um, what are they feeling about things? Let's see if we can bring more peace to the relationship, whether they've passed or whether they're still on the planet with their people.
Mm.
Because we get our animals these days, our animals come into our houses. My joke is that my husband's grandfather had beagles in the backyard, and now I wake up with dogs and cats in the bed. We've made a big shift.
Yes, we have made a big shift.
And so that relationship for those of us who've discovered it, it is a familial relationship. And it is one of that we want to find as much joy that we can with them. So I really switched over and working with people and their animals. It brought out the best in people. They come to me with an open heart. The animals are glad to converse or share, and so it worked out really well, and I was hooked.
That's beautiful. I mean, I think the animals, because of all of their innocence and their love, they can teach us humans quite a bit. And that takes me to that takes me to the grief perspective. Many people actually really underestimate the depth at which the grief is experienced when losing an animal companion. What's a
Yes.
common misconception about pet loss and grief that you wish more people understood?
Well, the hardest thing that I still heard coming around, it was just an animal, get another one.
Mm,
Um, Part of me wants to physically slap them down, but that's not a nice thing to do.
yes.
So I just say, well, they don't get it. And the problem is, or let's say the issue is, for many of us, we find that we at times we love and receive more love from our animals than we do from the humans in our lives. And it's more consistent. There are just not the generally not the arguments going on, and every human who's in a relationship knows what I'm talking about. There's love there, but it's kind of hard to find it sometimes. And when we have animals, almost, I don't know, 99.9% of the time, there's a loving connection that goes really, really deep because the we are getting unconditional love in many cases, and we humans aren't very good at giving that.
Mhm.
And I think that's where the grief comes in, is that there was somebody very special. We had a bond with them that kind of kept us going, kept us smiling, made every day positive because of their presence, no matter what. Uh, and losing that's huge.
Mhm. It is.
It is.
And I think about when you read these articles that doctors have made about elderly, if they have a pet in their life, they live longer and have fuller lives because of the animals in their lives. And so I can't imagine, or I can imagine what it does to your nervous system to have these animals showering you with love day in and day out so that you can feel this joy and these really your endorphins and stuff coursing through and healing your body as a result of that affection that you're receiving from the animals. And to lose that, so it is can be devastating as much as to the degree of losing a friend that may have passed in your life for some people.
Right. Because so there's the physical aspect of seeing, touching, and interacting with them on a beautiful level. And you're right, that there's something that just perks up in me, and I'm sure it does in other people. I wake up, I see my dogs and cats on the bed, and I'm like, huh, yeah, I feel pretty good here. You guys got to move over. I got to get out. But
Yeah.
hey, this is, and touching, and they're loving it. And yeah, that brings a lot of uh, health and vitality to many of us.
Hmm. Now,
Yeah.
navigating the human animal bond in grief, the loss of a pet brings really unique emotional and even spiritual challenges. And what are the biggest struggles people face in this type of grief? And how do you guide them through that when you're working with them?
Well, one of the largest issues that people who come to me have talked about, and I've even experienced, is the fact the fact that we are allowed to humanely end their lives, but we make the decision. It leaves people in a place of doubting themselves. Did I do it too soon? Did I keep them too long? And it adds another burden onto the grief. And what I say, which I didn't make up, I really got it when I connected with animals, is they're they're intelligent beings, and on a soul level, they gave us their medical power of attorney.
Mm.
They came in and said, "Okay, I'm joining the family. I'm trusting you to make the right decisions." And that's the first thing I think people need to hear is that they gave you the right. And the other thing that I've learned with our animals, continuing the love, whatever decision we make
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to be perfect. What seems to bring them through is we made it in love, and that's what they bring through to the other side, to it with their spirit. And th this is a short version of this stuff, but if you can start to hold on to those two things, that is a way to let go. And there's also something about the fact that we're doing this second guessing ourselves,
Yeah.
because when you pull those things away, you get closer to experiencing the real loss of death. So it's something like your mind is trying to protect you. And I understand that. You have to get to, yes, this is what happened. This is it.
Mm-hmm. Acknowledging and witnessing the loss.
Yes. Yes. And knowing that is we're entering a new life without them, literally. That's been my experience.
And I acknowledge what you're saying about medical power of attorney.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, it really is that at this stage in society, because if we are the guardians of our pets, and to the degree now that legally we're responsible for their care once we take them on, and lawfully can be judged in that care.
Yes.
And so it's not just, some theoretical thing is that we're talking about. It is an actual guardianship, much like guardianship of a child or an elder that you're caring for. And I often wonder, um, in that guardianship, it sounds like what I heard you say a second ago is that they are experiencing this level of survivor's guilt or grief guilt, actually, over the decisions that they're making, much like we experience when we're making decisions for our parents or our children in those situations.
Yes, it seems very similar to me. There's, it's just we keep thinking that there's the perfect answer, and there's the right decision, and there's only one, and it's our job to figure that out. That reminds me that some of us get so into that we get into the fix it mode when they're ready to pass, because we just think, no, we got to do one more thing and one more thing and one more thing. And they're okay with that. But sometimes if you ask them, they'd say, I ain't having fun anymore. I'd like to go.
Hmm.
So the that grief and that is so true. And that's right. The fix it thing. Let me try another technique. Let me try another protocol.
Yeah.
Uh, when if you were able to step back or talk to an animal communicator and ask, how are they feeling?
Hmm.
You might hear that they're okay with being released or go on a hospice or whatever that, version is of end of life.
Yeah. Yeah, we got to talk to Dr. Jeff about different um, end of life options that are now available to pets, like palliative care, as well as
Yes.
hospice, as well as having people come into your home and manage the transition at home in a place of comfort. Healing through connection. Your work bridges that communication between animals and their guardians. What's one powerful practice or mindset shift you recommend for someone grieving the loss or impending loss of their pet? Because in thinking about, can they, I mean, I don't know, I'm going to ask, can they ask if they would like to be released to the next realm at home or in a different kind of situation, and then be at ease through the work of a pet communicator to help them understand that?
Yes, that's a good question. They surely can. And they can be asked, and we've had it. Are you ready? Are you not ready? And you can get a feel for it. And sometimes I've noticed that, and I've told some of my clients, they're going to give you the look when they're ready. And I remember someone who had a dog, and she came and looked at her dog, and her dog woke up and gave her that look, and she knew now's the time.
Hmm.
And that's something you might look for. One of the one of the things that I've done, and I recommend people to do, and I've got to say first that our grief starts way before we're at the point generally of making a decision, and that's part of the issue.
Hmm.
Um, when we see them slowing down, like for real, like, oh, I always knew we were going to pass on, but it's getting real now. That starts it, or the diagnosis that says, well, there's less of a chance that they're going to continue. That's where the grief comes in. And so, a couple of things that I've thought of is to imagine that they're looking at you, at least in the beginning, I'm not dead yet.
Hmm.
So, to get out of the grief and say, okay, what can we do to enjoy the life given whatever their capabilities are today? What do
Yeah.
they enjoy? What do they love? Do they want more love? Do they want shorter walks? Dogs and cats. Uh, do they just want something to ease the physical pain and then they can keep going? I had a dog like that who I thought she was ready to go, and we got her on some pain medication, and she got a little while longer. So you go through that and you remember, I am not dead yet. And interacting in a way that's lovely. Um, the other thing that I think of is, and this is especially good after they've passed, but is to talk to them and to think about them when you have memories of good times, like, and even if it's toward the end of life, telling them how much you've enjoyed them and you loved them and what you loved most about them, and even after they go, to help move the grief over just a little bit, to talk as if you're having a conversation that says, hey, do you remember when we ran in Fort Hunt Park at Tibor and you were always ahead of us and Stella and I were always picking up and you'd stand there at the top of the hill and grin, and Stella and I were just like, we're coming. And just get that, those memories of joy that you had. It does help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you've had a few animals and have a
Yeah, a few. Yes.
Can you share a moment from your own journey or one of your clients' experiences that profoundly shifted your understanding of animal transitions and the healing process?
Ah, okay. Well, of course, you've got the two that I started with Eddie and Timmy.
Hmm.
Um, I've got all my dogs and cats that passed over here. That's why I'm looking over there.
Yeah.
I, for myself, I think the healing process that was so good for me was my husband passed. My first husband passed when he was pretty low. He was in his mid 40s.
Hmm.
Kids were young, and I got this dog Mitsubishi, and Siberian Husky, kids named him, and he was there all through the process, and he was my best buddy and stuff. And when he finally passed away, I connected with him and he said, I was there for you through that grief till you got okay.
Hmm.
And you could make it. He says, I'm probably not coming back because I do believe in reincarnation. He says, but I'm here for you.
Yeah,
And I was there for you through it on purpose, and I'm still here for you. And that was just so reassuring to me that they get a lot out of it, but we do too. And sometimes we can hear that from our beloved companions.
that's beautiful.
I also have a funny one because it's about like the timing of their death. It's kind of tricky sometimes. I think that I understand why cats say they have nine. We say they have 9 lives because
Hmm.
I was working with this cat Goldie and been outside. we we got Goldie to come back in, and he had some kind of an altercation and had a pretty big tear on his um, cheek, and so he was taken to the vet, and we checked in with him, and he says, I've had it, I'm done, no more, just palliative care, thank you very much, and so
Yeah.
in his cat way,
Hmm.
but so Tammy said, oh, okay. That all right. So that means we're not taking you to the vet anymore. We'll just do what we have to do at home. And he switched over and he said, okay, I'm gonna stick around for a while. I'm
It was
like,
like
oh, are you sure?
he's like,
Yeah, go ahead.
surprise,
Yeah,
surprise.
surprise. And I have seen that there's decisions and it looks like they're at the end and then they say, well, no, I'm gonna stick around a little more. Even dogs, we've asked a couple dogs to stick around and wait till their guardians came home from travel so that they could be there with them when they passed, and they were willing to do that because they were really ready, but they were willing to do that. So
Oh,
it's
wow.
kind of lovely. Yeah.
Yeah. So
They're not,
generous.
yeah, I'm not making them do it. We're just asking. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Um, that's food for thought. I have two little ones.
Yeah.
And that makes me, I really, since having the initial conversation with you, I'm really starting to be more aware of how they're moving through life with me.
Mhm.
Because I know they came to me as a comfort as I was losing my father. And so when I hear you say that your husky was, hey, I've been here through with you through all of this, supporting you, being here, making sure you're okay. And then you in turn had the opportunity to make sure he was okay.
I did. I
And so
did.
and so that leads me to compassion and support. Many people feel that others don't understand the depth of their grief, which is a really big thing I'm finding. Um, I'll be talking to someone about the loss of their father or their mother, and they're really, and then they express that what's coming up for them is the loss of their dog or their cat. And they're like, I don't understand why I'm so emotional about my cat that passed away 5 years ago, in the midst of my parent passing.
Wow.
Um, so many people don't understand the depth of their grief when they lose a pet. How can family, friends, and even professionals show up better for someone experiencing pet loss?
Um, First, I would say the first thing to do is just acknowledge it, that it's a big deal. Hopefully, there's a lot more people who have animals and have lost them, so they know that. Um, and just ask, what's really been helpful is to ask, give them time to tell you stories about their pet. Like, you know, he was such a nut, he did this, he did that. She was such a love, and tell stories. There's something beautiful in people listening to you tell stories about all the joy that your pet brought you. There's something so comforting there. So if you can ask about, tell me about, I don't, what do you remember? What kind of dog, cat was it? What did they do? What brought you joy? That is so good. I've seen people just light up as they're crying, and then we get on the subject of their lovely animal, and it perks them up.
So it's really good to show up, acknowledge, witness,
Yes,
as well as hold on to those memories that are honoring and joyful of the pet.
absolutely. And to be heard,
Mm-hmm.
somebody to care about the fact that this was somebody with a full personality, you
Mm-hmm.
know, that had strong feelings, this animal companion, and had brought a lot of joy in the family. Just to be able to share that stuff, it's lovely.
Yes, yes. It reminds me of sometimes you see these movies or TV shows, and it really is true that animals, I feel like they imprint on people, because you hear these stories of the I have a neighbor actually. They went out of town, left their dog with a sitter. It was a boarding place, and somehow their pup, Australian, I don't know what it's, the one with the gray eyes.
Yeah.
I mean, they're gorgeous dogs. They're like patchwork with gray eyes.
Yes.
The shepherd dogs, I think, the Australian
I was
shepherd
thinking that
dogs.
too. Yeah.
Mhm. And they lost their dog, but that puppy, even in his young years and having only been with them for a short time, when they found him, he had made his way all the way across, almost across town, you would say, for this area of Los Angeles, and was less than a mile from home. And I think to myself, how did he know? How did he know how to get back home? But I think it's that connection
It
that you've been
is.
talking about this entire conversation.
Yeah, I think so. Well, one of the things that I'm firmly believing in now is we choose each other.
Hmm.
It's not like we just pick them out. They pick us out too. I think there's a soul connection. And if you want to go farther, you could say they're part of our soul family if you have that understanding. I used to think it was just humans because that's all they talk about. But I think it's not a coincidence. And so they are very much connected to us. And they they feel the bond. I have to tell you, I have two new dogs, relatively new, because in 2022 I had five animals, three cats and two dogs, and the two dogs and one of my cats passed away in about 5 weeks.
Oh,
and it
wow.
was extraordinary. And the day that my dog Tibor passed, the night before he passed, let's be specific, I got the most cool dream of myself walking around with just walking around with my dog Tibor, Stella, who'd passed, and the Mitsubishi I'd been talking about. And there were a huge number of dogs there. And all of a sudden, they pick up another dog, and now it's four of them. And interestingly enough, my guy Newt
Mm-hmm.
is the guy who looked like that dog. Like
Mm.
they're picking him out for me.
Yeah.
And what was so beautiful is they didn't the rescue group didn't think he was ever going to find a home because he was just his behavior was so he was so afraid. He'd come from a pretty tough situation. And I thought, wow, how cool. This is just an example, but I think there's stuff going on in the spirit world to bring us together,
Mm-hmm.
who we need and who they need.
Yeah. To bring us
Yes,
in partnership for healing, I would say, actually.
absolutely. Because for me, having animals is, I think I've become a nicer person.
As a result, yes.
Yeah, because you just there's a little more just open-heartedness that I've found when I release anything so that I can love my animals fully, and I think that helps me even with human beings. It's taken a while, but it's working.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's beautiful. I mean that's just going back to the beginning of this conversation where
yeah,
the animals can teach us so much as humans.
they
Um,
can.
and when people go from loss to love, which sounds like you have mastered really, in your experience, how can honoring an animal's life and spirit help someone move from that deep grief where I mean, I've seen people that are just completely, it's debilitating. It's almost like they've been hijacked,
Yes.
that they've been, moved from that deep grief of being hijacked by their grief to a place of peace or possible renewal.
There's a few things that you can do. They can do. I actually worked with somebody who was in that place earlier this week, and so give me a second here. It's most important to share. The first thing that I think we don't realize is I've said it before, we can have conversations with them to remind us of all the good things we had with them. We can also, if there is some stuff that we're just hanging on to that we feel is we screwed up, if I can say it that way,
Yeah,
uh, we
absolutely.
can go to them. Okay, we can go to them and say, hey, if I had it to do over, I would have done it this way. I'm really sorry. I'm going to do better next time. I actually had that conversation with my dog, Pee Wee, who somebody gave to me while I was still drinking. Not a, don't give somebody who's drinking too much a dog to help them. Um, but I was a so-so parent, but I talked to her afterwards and said, look, I understand that I was not the greatest person. Uh, and I'm just giving my example. And hopefully people can take the big message out of this. I'm sorry. I saw where I did not be the kind of person I wanted to be with you, and I'm going to do better next time.
Mhm.
Or if there's a transition and however it was, it didn't go as well as you'd hoped, you could say, look, if I had it to do over again, uh, this is how it would flow. And you'd actually feel it and send it to them. Like you guys are actually living in a new reality now. And that it all comes together and everybody's happy and whatever that is. That's a couple things you can do. It feels like imagination, but I know there's a real connection and healing there.
Yeah. It sounds like
Uh,
visualization.
it is. with a connection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It
Yeah,
sounds
like you're just
really,
sending them that.
mhm.
Yeah, exactly. It is. It's visualization. Just in your mind's eye. You don't have to, create anything 3D. Just think about it.
Yeah.
But there are people, uh, this may help too. I've had people who create shrines, like there's a little place where they are in the garden, maybe someplace, or even had a spot in the house where you've got their ashes and you have some pictures of them or something else. So it's kind of a memory place. It feels so good. Another one that comes to mind is my husband worked with a lady who created little felt uh, pictures, or it almost looks like toys of the three animals that passed back in 2022, and just having those there beyond the pictures, yeah, that was really kind of nice. It's a lovely little thing to do. So there's ways you can do to honor them.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I'm a firm believer in honoring across the board in the midst of grief because it really gives you that connection and that sense
Mm,
of grounding and peace, even though that sadness may well up and traverse however it will, because for every
yeah.
person it's different. But it's really good to know, for me, especially, that it pet loss and pet grief does not have to be a disenfranchised grief because currently it has been dismissed through the ages, but now we're finally coming into a space in the world where we are starting to validate that pet grief because pets are like members of the family at this point. I mean, especially since the pandemic. I let people know I have pandemic dogs. They don't know anything about not being away from their mama. So let's
I get
all,
it.
so if you have a problem, we might have to meet somewhere else because pandemic dogs, I think, are different. They are super, super like attached, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think the world is evolving with the things that are happening in the world as well as with technology and understanding that, back in the 80s or the 70s, it was okay, this pet's life is ending. We're going to euthanize them in the facility and we'll get back with you and then it's on to the next thing. But now we're understanding that there are these soul ties, right?
Yes.
There are these moments, there are these relationships, there are this understanding that the relationships are symbiotic between humans and animals. That the relationship is healing in both ways, that the relationship increases longevity in life, that the relationship increases, our health conditions. And so I want to thank you for taking the time out. I know you have a lot going on to
Thank you.
speak with us today. And I really want to also commend you for your work in helping people navigate this space with their living pet as well as, the pets that may have gone on. And I think it's important to note that with the grief that people are experiencing earlier, you were talking about how they say, I'm still here. And I feel like the same thing happens with anticipatory grief across the board, right? Someone will still be here. And because we're so consumed with fixing it, we're not allowing ourselves to be in the joy of having them with us in the moment
Yeah.
and being present in the moment. And so I would like to offer that can we all just take a moment in all of these situations and be present with our feelings, be present with our love, and be present with our healing. And with that, Mary Beth, I'm going to ask you our final bonus question that everyone gets. If healing had a voice, what would it say?
Oh. Oh no, let me think. Well, for me, I hear healing saying, I am love. I am love. I'm gonna cry. Um, I don't know if I have to explain that or not, but that's where I feel the healing shows up in the love connections and the strength of our loving relationship and holding on to that. And love never dies. Love never dies. That's all I got.
We love you, Mary Beth. Thank you. And just so
Thank
you
you.
know, crying is always permitted here.
Okay, all right.
Crying is always permitted here because I believe that the love is in the tears,
Yeah, it's true.
you know? So
Yeah,
thank you for sharing yourself, your journey, and your mission with us today.
I enjoyed this. Thank you so much. Yeah,
Absolutely. And how can people find you? I know you have your website.
I do. It's sacredgrove.com, sacredgrove.com. And I did write a book on all the stuff we talked about, so you'll find it there, Peace and Passing. Um, And I'd love for folks to check me out.
Thank you, Mary Beth. And as we always say here, live in light, love, and learning today and every day. Mary Beth, it's been an honor.
Same here.
Thank you.